everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to be talking about when do you know that it's time to expand beyond the Reiki practice that you have now, or dive even deeper into your spirituality, into Reiki, into other modalities that you can use along with Reiki. And I love this idea of acknowledging where our strengths are and also where, I don't like to call them weaknesses, but where our soft spots are, where we can kind of grow and expand and enhance ourselves, and realizing that a lot of times it's those spaces and places that invite us to go deeper first, because it's that acknowledgement of, I feel really confident in this area, but this one is feeling a little bit lacking. And I know that, Christine, for you, that's kind of what started you on your Reiki history kick, is you
Oh
were
yeah.
like, you know what, that's not a strength for me, and I want to dive into it. And now there's so much that you've learned and that you've taught us as a community as a result. And so I think it's a great example, and maybe we can start there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it. I think once we kind of start to get curious, and I always, you hear me say this all the time. What are you curious about? Where's the inspiration? Because inspiration really is coming from divine. That doesn't just happen for no reason. When we are inspired, we need to follow that. We need to pay attention to that. We need to listen to that. And even if it's outside the box, like, how can we get curious and go deeper? And also, like, I'm a huge, like, let's fact check things. Like, just because you go down some conspiracy theory rabbit hole doesn't mean that, like, it's the be all end all. I think there's definitely a space and a place, especially in the spiritual community, to do our fact check, to kind of figure out, okay, let's actually go back to quantum physics. What does this say? Like, let's understand it on a deeper level and not just take surface level information. Let's actually, like, go all the way in and find out who's done the research, how is this supported, and know that it can be backed up. Because I think that's a big piece of it too. Like, we can let our curiosity and our inspiration point us in the right direction, but then let's do our homework too. Let's kind of, like, find the backbone of it and going, okay, now I really understand it. So, like, when I started diving into the Reiki history and deity yoga and all of these things, I went to sources that were like, okay, where am I finding the original form of deity yoga? Like, where's that text? So I went to someone who basically is, and we'll have him on the podcast at some point, I'm sure, but he basically translates Sanskrit. Like, that's what he does, right? Like, I'm like, so I went to him and going, what should I be reading right now? And he's like, you need to read this book. And I'm like, perfect. Right. And so I think there's a lot of resources out there, and it's more than a Facebook meme. It's more than what we're seeing on the surface level. And, like, let's go to some really good sources. And, like, when we find that information, it's going to really help back you up when you start talking about things. And I think that's a really important piece.
Yeah. And one of the ways that I love to see it is, obviously, here at Reiki Cafe, we love using our chakras. And I think that this is a great place to once again bring in the chakras of, we can have all of this divine inspiration in our crown chakra, right? We're bringing in these new ideas. We're having these thoughts about, well, what if this is connected to this? And maybe it means this. And what if spiritually it was, it meant this thing? And we have all of these really amazing ideas. And if they just stay up in the crown chakra, a lot of times they start to lose some of their substance, because we're not pulling them down into our root and looking at, okay, there's this really amazing idea. There's this energy that I'm called to explore. There's this thought that I've channeled or downloaded. How can I then bring it into this physical reality and see what has already been done in the physical realm with this idea? And what can I do with it? How can I take it further, whether that's for myself or for my community? And I think a lot of times that's really the flow that we take when we start to expand beyond where we are right now, or we start to dig deeper, is we get this idea and we're like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if XYZ? But a lot of times where people get stuck is then they don't know what to do. They're like, well, what do I do with it now? I'm just going to leave it there and maybe something will happen. And this is where, we talk about divinely guided action comes into play, because we have to balance those ideas and that ethereal nature of manifestation with the actual physical side of manifesting an idea and bringing it into this 3D reality of, let's take action. Let's find the people who maybe know more than we do, who have a piece of the puzzle that we don't. Because I think that's something that is at once beautiful and infuriating about being alive, is that our guides, the divine, our souls, our intuition, they never give us the full, complete picture because we need each other, right? We're not here to be isolated beings. We are completely interconnected and interwoven. And so while we may get a big portion of the puzzle, there's always going to be somebody who has something a little bit extra that they can bring to the table, or who has that missing piece that's going to make it all click into place for you. And I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at this, is reminding ourselves that we are all interconnected. And it's something that I know I try and bring into my daily life, is this idea that I firmly believe that every interaction we have, every experience we have, there's something for us in it. There's something important for us to have there. And so if we look at it from that space, every conversation, every word, every experience, every moment could be that piece of the puzzle that you're looking for. And I had one of these recently at a conference I attended. I was talking to someone that I'd met once or twice before, and we were just sharing our views on what it means to be a practitioner. And she said something that, from the time she said it, has completely transformed the way that I teach, the way that I practice, the way that I view things. And it was just this one-off little tiny comment that if I hadn't been present, if I hadn't been intentional about really believing that anybody could have that extra little piece that's going to catalyze your progress further and further, I would have missed it. And so I think that's another really crucial part of, again, bringing it into that root chakra, is realizing that, it's so easy when we're in that crown chakra space of wanting these ideas and this inspiration and getting these downloads, to think that because we're the one receiving that idea or that technique or that download or whatever it is, that we're the one who has to take it from start to finish. But when we can bring ourselves back into, at that point, what's really a heart chakra space of, yes, we've had this idea, and how do we bring it to our community? How do we find people who have had similar ideas or who can help us expand? And then how do we take it all the way down to root and say, okay, we have the ideas, we have the people, we have the pieces of the puzzle. Now, what do we do with it? What action do we take? How do we find the facts? How do we find the history? All of these things. And so I think when we really start to break it down this way, this is part of why I love the chakras so much, because they really do give us a map of, here's what you need to do step by step. And here's how we can take these inspirations that we have and really pull them deeper. And so I think at this point, a lot of people are probably sitting here going, this is great, but how do I know if I've had an inspiration or an idea to dive in deeper? And it's all of those little tiny nudges. I always tell my students, it's the things that you think you shouldn't listen to. It's like those little whispers in the background that you're like, oh no, I think we've all had an experience where we're like, maybe I should charge my phone tonight. And you're like, nah. And then you wake up the next morning and your phone's dead. And you're like, I should have charged my phone. It's that voice, that little teeny tiny nudge of, what if we did it this way? What if there was something here? It's that little whisper of wisdom in the background. And the more that we can start leaning into that, the more we can realize where it's guiding us in our practice. And so for a lot of Reiki practitioners, especially if you start out on a really traditional Reiki path, I think a lot of times that little voice comes in the form of, what if we didn't use the hand positions today? What if we were just intuitive with our Reiki practice? What if there was an angel or a guide who could help with this? What if there was something deeper here? What if there was more that you could do? Or, if you have repeat clients, what if there was a way that you could help them so that they didn't have to come back? These kinds of questions that I think often feel a little bit scary when we first start questioning them, because we're so used to being in that box. And so I think Christine and I are really here to say, if you're having those questions, if you're hearing those thoughts, this is your invitation to follow them further in a space where you feel safe to do so, because there really is so much magic on the other side. But the answer to that question of, well, how do I know if it's time to expand or go deeper, is, have you had any of those little tiny thoughts that say, hey, maybe there's more here for you?
Right. And so we just begin. And I think that comes back to knowing that you're worthy of receiving, whether that is receiving support, whether that's receiving divine downloads, like you just know that you are inherently worthy because you are here now. And I think that is oftentimes where I see people getting blocked. They're not getting the things because they don't feel worthy of the things. And so we have to kind of do that self-care practice. That has to be the foundation of everything. That self-care practice, whether that means your self-Reiki practice, whether that means that you have morning or evening rituals that you do, whether that means that you take a bath with Epsom salts, like there are so many ways to self-care. And how can you start integrating Reiki in your lifestyle? Like, I think this is really important. If you are wanting to go expand and go deeper, we need to have that firm foundation of a Reiki practice first. And so if this is stuck in the box, I can't trust my intuition, then we need to kind of start to break that mold and going, well, what does Reiki want to do for me today? And so maybe that's you're out in the garden and you're giving Reiki to your plants. Maybe you're making soup and you're giving Reiki to the soup. Like there's so many different ways to incorporate Reiki, like put that foundation in. And while you're in that mindfulness space of offering Reiki throughout your day, that's when the downloads show up. That's when the divine inspiration shows up, because it's that what I talked on our last coffee conversation, that kokoro, we have this mind-heart connection. And when it's clear, we're open and ready to receive. But when it's cluttered with our mind space, that's what really makes it difficult. It makes it difficult to hear and be aware of what's going on, especially if we're struggling with intrusive thoughts or not taking time to take care of ourselves. Like everyone has a busy life. Our mind space is basically designed to make us survive. And so we're getting caught up in loops of thoughts and patterns and self-sabotaging behaviors. We need to first become aware of our thoughts and really start recognizing this life that I'm leading isn't serving my higher purpose, and something's got to change. And so we have to have that first recognition. Okay, I gotta make a step so that I can go deeper. So having that awareness of where you're at and being really authentically true to yourself, noticing where you're being triggered is part of that process. And so once we have that down, like, okay, I've got the triggers, I'm working on them. I'm bringing in that self-care practice. I know that I'm worthy to be the practitioner that I want to be. There, voila, we have our foundation, right? So then in that place, in that space, when we have that divine nudge, when we get that intuition hits, when we get those downloads, then we can start moving them through the chakras and manifesting them, right? And so we need to do this. And I love, bringing them through the lens of the chakras. So let's say here comes the divine download, you get the divine inspiration. Here it is in crown and third eye. You're able to perceive what it would be like if this thing that you received comes into the world. You're actually being able to perceive how the world would shift with this idea coming in. How would your life shift with this idea coming in? And then you start talking about it. You start talking to your friends, you start talking to your family, you start vocalizing it and seeing what sticks to the wall and going, where is their pushback? And then you get curious and you start diving in deeper and doing the legwork of the research and really going like, I'm not tied to this idea, but there's something about it that I felt was given to me by a higher source. Let's dive in deeper. But those conversations really help to know it. Like, one, are we talking to people who understand where I'm coming from? Like, so for example, when I really was like, I need to go to the deepest source of like, where should I go next? I'm going to get curious and I'm going to go find the person who has expertise in this area. Right. So someone who knows more than me. So it's not, I'm not coming from an ego place. I'm like, no, I really want to know all of the things. Tell me. Right. So then you're bringing it down in your heart chakra space and you're having those conversations and you're receiving information and you're giving information and it's a two-way flow and you're able to, bring it out into your community in some capacity, but you're also coming down in that solar plexus and going, is this in alignment with my integrity? Is this in alignment with who I am? Is this in alignment for how I want to proceed and supporting the people around me? And I think that's a really important piece too, so bringing it down into that solar plexus space then allows us to bring it even deeper into our sacral chakra, which is that space of creativity and joyfulness and playfulness of like, how do I want to manifest this in the world? And then we can do so in our root. We can bring it out.
And that's again, that's why we love using those chakras as a roadmap, because it can feel so overwhelming when we first start having these divine inspirations and these ideas of this feeling of, well, what now? Or there's too much. I think that's something that we hear again and again with our students as they come in and they say, I've opened up spiritually and now I'm getting all of these ideas and these downloads and I don't know what to do. They feel too overwhelming. And so one of the things that I always tell them to do is I tell them to make a sticky note wall to the universe. And basically all that is it's just a wall where anytime you have an idea, you have an inspiration, you write it on a sticky note and you stick it on the wall. And it's this way of telling the universe, I see you, I get the idea, I'm going to keep moving, but I need a little more guidance. I need your support. I want this to be, like Christine said, a two-way street. I want this to be a process of what we would call divine co-creation, where I'm putting in energy and action, but I also need you, universe, to support me and put in energy and action as well. And so in that way, it lifts a lot of the burden off of you, I think, of this process in knowing that we are supported, that these ideas that we have, these inspirations we have, they are coming from the divine because we are ready and able to receive them and to put them into practice. And I think this is really where, when we're going through that process of bringing it in the chakras, this is often where people get stuck, because it's that solar plexus point of you have to decide that you're worthy to receive that idea, that you're worthy to try something new, that you are safe to try something new, that you can expand beyond who you are now and be accepted and be welcomed and shine that light even brighter than it is right now. And that's really where I think a lot of people get stuck, is that feeling of, why me? Or who do I think I am? Right? To be able to do this. And this is where we go back to, who are you not to? If the divine is giving you an idea, if your intuition is knocking on the door of your mind, who are you to turn it away? Who are you to say, oh, thanks, but I'm not worthy, right? Why would it have come to you if you weren't worthy to receive it in the first place? And I think this is something that I always tell my students, that the divine is always searching for us. Our intuition is always calling us home. We are the ones that turn it away, right? Our minds and all of their joyful wisdom and wanting to keep us safe are just creating boundaries and limitations that we don't need. And that's one of the hardest things to come to terms with, I think, in this process of expanding and diving deeper, is this idea that you truly are your own biggest obstacle. And that's incredibly difficult to wrap our minds around, because we look at the world around us and we see our financial situation, we see our physical environment, we see the relationships that we have that maybe aren't as healthy as they could be. We see our jobs that maybe we do or don't love. We see our to-do list. We see all of these things outside of ourselves. And we like to say, well, but look at this and look at this and look at this. Look at all of these things that are holding me back. And then we have to realize that at some level, right? And this is not me putting all of the blame on the person, but this is me saying that at some level, we are resonating with everything that's happening in our lives. And that is, again, it's not me saying that if there's some tragedy in your life that you manifested it and it's your fault. That is, I think, an extremely false and harmful belief that has been cultivated in the spiritual community that I would love to be the one to uproot and take out, because it's not true. But what I'm saying is that it means that in every experience and every conversation, like I was saying earlier, there's something for you here. There's a little seed of wisdom or inspiration or growth that can be planted to help take you to the next level, take you to the next lesson, take you to the next checkpoint in your life. And we have to be willing and open to accepting those, because if we start to become stagnant, is the word that I would use. If we have all these situations in our lives that maybe we're not thrilled with, but we just say, oh, that's just how it is because it's outside of me. I can't control it. I can't help it. It's not my fault. It's not my responsibility, whatever it is. If we start to push those things away because that's how the mind feels safer, then they start to stagnate, because what we're doing is, again, we're pushing away the divine. We're pushing away the flow of life that's trying to bring us lessons, that's trying to bring us insight, that's trying to bring us inspiration and growth and evolution through these experiences. And we're saying, no, I don't want it. Because a lot of times it feels scary and it feels difficult. But the thing is that inclination to push things away, to push away the flow of life, to push away your path, is then reflected in our desire to push away people, push away inspiration, push away the divine and say, I'm not worthy. This isn't mine. Go find somebody else. Who am I to do this thing? And so we have to realize that this idea of being willing to take on inspiration, being willing to take in ideas, being willing to co-create with the universe, it has to go all the way, right? You can't just say, oh, yes, please, I'll take the inspiration, but I won't take this lesson. Or yes, please, I'll go and do this manifestation, but I'm not going to set a boundary in my life. I'm not going to stay true to myself. I'm not going to uphold my integrity. It has to go all the way. And I think a lot of times this is where we do start to feel stuck, because there's a lot of stuff in the spiritual community right now that says follow these 5 steps and you'll be able to manifest. And those work, right? We've all tried them and they work for about 30 days. And then we fall off, because what happens is we run up against those walls. We run up against those deeper beliefs. We run up against that pushing away of life that's eventually going to catch back up to us. And so this is what we mean when we're saying that we have to take that holistic, overarching approach of doing the self-care, looking at your limiting beliefs, looking at what's holding you back, and being really brutally honest with yourself about what that is. And that's one of my favorite questions to ask my students, is because inevitably somebody will come to me and they'll be feeling really stuck. They'll be feeling like they're not making progress, like they're overwhelmed, like they don't know what to do. And my favorite question to ask them is, if you were brutally honest with yourself today, what do you need? Because at the end of the day, we all know exactly what we need in each moment, whether that is to listen to the little voice that's in your head telling you to expand, or it's to take a self-care day, or it's to have a difficult conversation. We all know. We've just gotten so used to turning away from that wisdom and pushing it aside that that's our first instinct, is to separate ourselves from that life flow, from those lessons that are coming to us. And we just need to step into that space where we recognize that it's okay, that we can welcome those things in, not because we want to, subject ourselves to hardship or we want to call in all those things, but because when we're really in that flow of life, we're connected to the divine. We're saying, yes, I'm willing to co-create, not just on this idea, but on my life. I always like to say that we are the manifestation of our soul. Our soul has created exactly who we are in this moment. And our soul is going to cultivate and create the life experiences so that we can become who we need to be tomorrow. And once we remember that, when we remember that even in the hard times, this is something we'll talk about next week in our next coffee conversation, but even in the hard times, even in the times that feel confusing, the times that feel chaotic, that we are held and supported, that everything has a purpose along that path, because we are actively being manifested by our souls, by the divine. We are being called forward. And so we can welcome in those experiences, knowing that even in that, even if we're in the middle of a storm or we're at the start of a journey and we're like, I don't know what I'm doing, that you are completely held and safe and guided. And when we can open up our arms to all of those life experiences and really lean into doing that inner work of, let's install those beliefs that you are worthy, that you are capable, that you are successful, that you are strong, that you are enough. That's when this ability to step forward and dive in deeper in your practice becomes so much easier, because suddenly not only are you not pushing life away anymore, but you're also welcoming it in. You're saying, I am worthy to receive it. I am worthy to cultivate it. I am worthy to step up and play what I like to call ping pong with the divine, where the divine is going to give you an idea and you're going to take an action and set that ball back, and it's going to hand you something else. And you're just going to keep moving forward in that back and forth co-creative relationship. But until we're willing to really step into life with open arms and an open heart, it's going to be a lot more difficult.
And I want to mention here, like, even though we're talking about this, both Isabel and myself have been there, right? Like, we have been in a position in our life where we said, no, I can't do this. I'm going to hide it. I'm going to push it down. I'm not going to look at it. There definitely has been times in my life that I explicitly remember going, I can't do this. I'm everything in my being and all of my guides were like, you need to have a Reiki practice. And I'm like, I'm going to be poor. I'm going to be broke. I had a list of limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. Who would ever come see me? Like, it wouldn't work out. Like, people are going to judge me. Like, all of the things were flooding my brain. And it felt like the universe was bringing me to the cliffside and ready to push me off the edge. And that feeling, that I'm going to die if I actually let this happen, is a part of the process, because they want you to know that they're going to push you off the edge, but you're going to be able to fly. And that in that flight, that is where the miracles show up for you. Right. And so I've been there. I've had my dark night of the soul, to the point where it was like, okay, I will do nothing but Reiki and meditation. That will be my life moving forward. I will no longer push this stuff away, push this stuff down, and not take action on the divine inspiration showing up. So if you are in that phase where you're recognizing that those little hints are coming in, and basically the universe is screaming at you, but you've got the noise canceling headphones on, right? Like, it is time to literally take them off and going, okay, I am willing to show up and do the work. What's the next step? And it may feel scary, and it may feel like, oh my God, I'm not going to do it like anyone else is doing it. And my response to that is like, who freaking cares? If the universe is telling you to take a step, then do you. And I think there's a lot of programs in the spiritual industry and coaches and Reiki practitioners. Like, there's lots of things that like want to put you in a box. And here at ReikiCafe University, we have been saying for years, like, you need to do you. Your spiritual gifts, your mission and purpose, your divine light is unique to you. So I do not want many copies of me. Like, I don't want that. I want you to shine your light exactly the way it shows up for you. And you don't hear that very often in the spiritual industry, of going, you can do it your way. What does that look like for you? What does that mean for you? And how can you show up fully in your essence and your power and your divine light, and see where the universe takes you?
Yeah. And this is where, something that does come up a lot when we start having this conversation is that idea of comparisonitis. And one of the things that I love to do with ideas like this, things that get really stuck, these loops that we find ourselves in our mind, is let's break those down, right? Let's really look at what is it that we're talking about when we're looking at comparing ourselves to others. And one of the things that I find fascinating over the course of working with so many students and so many clients is that when we really dig into comparitis or comparisonitis, is this idea that our success, our happiness, our joy, our whatever it is, means that it is taken away from somebody else. There's this inherent fear that other people being successful means we can't be, or ourselves being successful means that somebody else isn't getting to. And what I love about this is that it's so easy to then say, okay, let's zoom back one step further and say, what is that? That's just a lack mentality. It's just this belief, once again, that we are dealing with finite resources, finite time, finite amounts of happiness, finite amounts of money, that we are in a very rigid, strict, structured, physical world. That's all that comparisonitis is. It is your brain holding on to the idea that there is no magic in life. Because magic is new and it's scary and it's hard for your mind, right? Because our minds are hardwired to believe that anything that's new, anything that's unfamiliar is dangerous. And so it's going to take that. It's going to say, oh, that clairvoyance that you just opened up, oh, that idea that you just had, oh, this manifestation that you want to bring in, that's new, that's scary, therefore it's wrong. Therefore it's bad, therefore it's dangerous, therefore we should not do it. And so when we look at comparisonitis, all it is your brain saying, no, 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 we already don't have enough. We are already not enough. It is just a manifestation of this deeper belief that so many people have, that we are fundamentally lacking in some way, that we're wrong, that we're not enough, that we're broken, whatever it is. And that idea, that little seed that we have in our minds, is just going to sprout and grow. And that's where we see comparisonitis come in, because we're looking at other people and we're saying, oh, they're doing it better than I am, therefore I'm wrong. Oh, they're doing it this way. Why didn't I think of that? I'm such an idiot. I couldn't have done that. I'm not worthy to do this, right? It just funnels back to that belief that somehow we are lacking, which is just a lack mindset, which is just a victim mentality, which is just your brain trying to keep you safe. And I think when we can look at it that way, and when we can really bring it down to that kernel of, it is your brain saying that there is something new, and therefore that new thing is dangerous, we can really look at it and say, that means I have the opportunity to choose differently. If it's just my mind, right? If it's just that like toddler in my head, as I like to call it, this little 2-year-old that's pitching a fit because it's scared, I can comfort it. I can acknowledge and accept its feelings, and I can recognize that it's not reality. It's a construct that it's created to keep itself feeling safe. But there is something new here. I had a teacher once who told me that the amount of resistance, friction, or frustration we feel in reference to an idea is how far away we've gotten from the truth of it. And I think that's such an interesting way of looking at it. So if we take comparisonitis and we look at somebody who's really successful, who's doing what we want to do, and we're feeling that friction and that tension of like, oh, they're doing it so much better. I could never do that. I'm going to, be broke and homeless and die alone. That amount of friction and resistance is because we're so far from our soul's truth of there's more than enough for everybody. When you are on your divine aligned path, there's nothing that can stop you. Your happiness, your joy, your success doesn't take away. In fact, it adds to everyone else's joy and happiness and success. And even just saying that, even just listening to that, you can feel the difference. But that's a yardstick that I love using, is how much friction and how much resistance and how much of that discomfort and that discontent are you feeling in a specific situation? Because chances are you're feeling that friction because your mind has stepped so far away from your soul's truth to try and keep you safe, right? It's not malicious, but it stepped so far away from your soul's truth that we just need to root you back in. We just need to bring you back to that understanding that you are held, that you are safe, that you are enough, that there is more than enough, that you were put here for divine purpose, that you are, again, your soul's manifestation, and you are exactly where you need to be, which means that these ideas, these inspirations, this path that you want to follow, it was made for you. You were made for exactly what you're being called to do. And the more that we can step into that, the more that we can lean into that, and the more that we can go back to, thank you for the ability to have this calling, to have an idea that I want to bring into the world, to have an inspiration of what I want to do next, however small or large that is. How incredible is it that the divine is thinking of us and giving us these ideas and giving us this inspiration, that our soul is calling us forward? When we can step back into that truth, that's when that expansion occurs. Because again, I like to think of it like a drawstring bag, where you pull the drawstring and the top closes up. That's kind of how I see the relationship with our mind and our soul. Is the mind is holding on to that drawstring, and that opening is how much of our soul or our intuition we're able to hear. And the more we lean into our mind, and the more limiting beliefs that we have, and the more stories we have, and the more fear we hold on to, the mind is just pulling that opening on the drawstring pouch and closing it up. And so when we can help our mind to release, when we can help it to relax, when we can again acknowledge it, because we don't want to push it away, but when we can acknowledge it and we can say, yeah, those are the stories that I'm telling. If I'm being brutally honest with myself, there's that phrase again. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what I'm worried isn't going to work. And I know that there's a different perspective waiting for me because I can feel that resistance. I can feel the distance from the mindset that I'm in now and the mindset that my soul has, that truth that my soul is calling me towards. And so can I take even just one baby step today closer to that? So if you're feeling like, oh, you know what I really need, if I'm being brutally honest with myself, is a little bit of rest, can you give yourself 5 minutes to just sit on the couch and notice that the world does not end? Notice that you're still okay. If it's that you need to go have a conversation with someone at a coffee shop, can you go to a coffee shop today? Just those little tiny bits where we can then feel that ease, we can feel that opening widen a little bit so that we can hear our soul, we can feel our intuition, and we can come back to that truth of knowing that in each and every step along the way, we are guided, we are unique, and we are exactly where we're meant to be. And that truth, that I am exactly where I'm meant to be, does not mean that anybody else isn't. It doesn't take away from anybody else's truth, that they are also exactly where they need to be. There is that, again, that sense of interconnection and that interwoven nature of being alive that says that we can all be happy and joyful and connected and successful and all of these things at the same time. It's not mutually exclusive. And we can let go of that lack mindset and set ourselves up for freedom, which will then give the people next to us the permission to have that freedom in themselves.
Yes. Yes to all of that. And recognizing from this third eye perspective of, how am I perceiving the world? Am I perceiving that I am going to go out in the world and I'm going to be met with hardship, that I'm going to be met with scarcity, that I'm going to be like, that's a mindset that we can heal and calm the inner mind down about. Because if you have a mindset of, every time I go out and meet someone, I'm there for reason and purpose. Every interaction is for reason and purpose. What is a divine trying to speak to me today through other people? Like there's this whole interaction that the world can become a playground if we take the perception that it's all in the realm of possibility. And that's why the opposite of comparisonitis is possibility portals. When we know we're inherently worthy, when we know that we're connected with divine, that we are a divine inspirational spark in the universe, like when we have this inherent knowingness, then when we look at others and they're where we want to be, we see them as possibility portals, meaning if they can do it, so can I, rather than they can do it, therefore I can't. There's no way I can be that good, right? Like it's all in the self-confidence. It's all in this knowingness that we are here for divine reason and purpose. So if you see someone and they've hit the milestones that you are hoping to hit, and you go, if they can do it, so can I. What steps do they take? How are they showing up? What's their self-care look like? What's their confidence level, right? And so there's an option of going, I can get swooped up in comparisonitis, or I can look at it as like, okay, I know that the divine showed up for them. It can show up for me too. How can I start co-creating, manifesting in relationship with the universe, with the divine, with God, whatever you want to call it, so that I can bring myself in alignment to create, to manifest, to do the things that we want to do and know that we're worthy of them. I get really frustrated with our societal perceptions around money in particular, of like, you can't be spiritual if you have money. You can't, that we have all of these concepts that really make it difficult to push through. And it really sets one apart from the rest of everybody else. When like, of course I'm worthy to make money in exchange for my services, or that I can live a life with joy and fun and play. Gosh, those three right there, how much do we get pushed if we're not being productive, right? Like if we don't look quote unquote productive, like hurry up, someone's watching, look like you're busy. And that all of that is like I almost want to say like it's a game that has been put upon us. It's the monopoly board, right? And the monopoly board comes to the point of like, we're all going to be homeless and we're not going to have any money. And then the game ends, right? It's not fun. And it's not actually serving us. So how can we go, that rules that they set up for us, society has set up for us, isn't actually serving me. Those beliefs about scarcity, about that we need to be workers, and from our educational system to our other institutional systems that are kind of put us in boxes. And so that's why when I started my Reiki practice, I had people like, it's just a hobby, honey, get a real job. That is where it's coming from. And so when we can recognize it, we can hit the pause button, reanalyze, and make a new choice, going, you know what? I don't believe that. That doesn't serve me. So once we can start analyzing our limiting beliefs, our thought processes, and going, is this thought, does it bring me towards my goal, or does it bring me away from my goal? And so this is where it's really helpful to have some goals, like just general, like, yeah, I want to pay off my house in 10 years instead of 30. Or I want to show up for my kids every day for lunch during the summer. Like I want to have a sit down meal and like really be there for them. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever your goal is, going, is this bringing me towards my goal, or is it bringing me away from my goal? And so oftentimes when we are like, okay, I want to build my Reiki business, or I want to go research this, and there's that little voice in the back of your mind, well, it's taking time and it doesn't make us money, then it's not worth our time. And I'm saying, well, what if that didn't happen? What if our new belief was, the more I dive into this research that I'm so involved with, that that it will bring me into an expansive state. If I'm in an expansive state, what does that lead me to supporting others in my practice? So the more I'm in an expansion state versus a contraction state, the more I'm able to help others. And when I'm in that expansive state, the more money I can make, the more I'm going to feel supported, the more that my kids are going to enjoy my presence, like all of it, right? All of that's in the realm of possibility. So what do we need to do? Are we going to make ourselves small, contracted, and surrounded in our limiting beliefs and keep recycling these self-sabotaging behaviors, which is what the majority of the society does? Or do we break off and go, I'm going to create a new path for myself, even if no one has done it? Or maybe someone else has done it similar to the way I would like. And that's a possibility portal, and going, what does their routines look like? What does their processes look like? What QuickBooks do they have, or whatever it is? Like there's spaces that we can look towards to know that, okay, I can do this. And that's that confidence level. And oftentimes when I'm teaching, there's a big gap between my shamanic Reiki students, those people in soul rising, versus like, let's say a business class. Because every time I teach a business class, I'm like, oh, if you would have just taken soul rising, we would have been so much further, because it's that confidence level. It's all of that inner healing that we do inside of our bigger 4-month programs, that if I teach a business class, I can tell you exactly the steps. But if you don't have the inherent worthiness, if you don't have that inherent confidence that you're meant to be doing this thing, then it's not that you're going to put your heels down and resist everything, right? Versus if someone has taken the soul rising or shamanic Reiki training and they've worked through their solar plexus healing, and then I give them the tasks and to-do list of like, do what feels in alignment, but like, these are the steps. This is the steps forward. They're like, heck yeah, I'm doing the things. They're excited about it, right? I recently had actually one of my health coaches reached out to me with a client referral. And basically she was like, she's not doing the business stuff because she's got too many limiting beliefs. She's got some deeper healing work that is needed. And I was like, oh yeah, she's got some healing work. Let's work on this. Pause on the business coaching with your coach. Like, let's work here, because nothing's going to be able to move forward until we know that we are worthy of success. We're worthy of abundance, that we're worthy of support, that we're worthy. We're inherently, divinely worthy to be here, to take up space, to shine our light. And it all comes down to this.
And so when we're having this conversation about how do I know if I'm ready to dive deeper in my Reiki practice, and looking at all of this amazing information that we've brought forward in this conversation today, it's really looking at, again, that question, like Christine was saying, of what's your goal? And I think for so many Reiki practitioners, our goal is to feel confident and expansive and aligned and guided in our practices. And so when we can have that, when we can put a phrase to what is it that you want out of your practice, whether it's a business for you or it's a self-care practice, what do you want? What's the goal? How would you love to be feeling? And then let's look at, where are the places and spaces where you're not feeling that way? And how would it feel if you took that and you did it differently? So for example, if it's the hand positions and you're feeling really stifled by the fact that you have to have your hands in a specific place for 3 to 5 minutes, how would it feel if you didn't do that? If you did it differently, if you let your intuition call you forward and you knew that that was okay, that you're still a good Reiki practitioner if you step out of the box, that it's not going to cause the session to go badly, or that you aren't worthy to be a Reiki practitioner anymore, that somebody else is doing it better because they're following quote unquote the rules, right? How would it feel if you let go of those stories and you did the thing that you need to do, that you know, right? Like we talked about earlier, that you inherently understand is what you need to achieve that goal, to feel the way you want to feel. How would it feel if you let yourself do that and you knew it was okay? If that was using your intuition when it came to the symbols and letting those go if you didn't want to use them in your practice that day? How would it feel if you leaned into using the chakras? If you enrolled in that course because the universe has been saying, hey, maybe shamanic Reiki is for you, and you've been a little afraid to do it, but you know there's something there for you. How would it feel if you put a name to the feeling that you want to have in your practice? And then you looked at every place and space where you're not feeling that way and chose to do it differently. How would that feel? Especially knowing that you have 2 people and about 4,000 people in the Reiki Cafe community who are giving you permission to do that, who are telling you that it's okay, who are telling you that you're not a bad practitioner if you don't do it the way everybody else is doing it. Reiki Cafe University would not be what it is today if we had decided to stay in the box. And we're okay, right? I think everybody would look at us and say, you know what? They're actually pretty okay at their jobs, right? Like, I don't think anybody is going to look at this and say, well, they're not doing it right. It must be bad because they aren't doing it the way that you're quote unquote supposed to do it. We stepped out of the box and we're okay. And we have found the people who have also either already stepped out of the box or want to step out of the box. And so if this is you, if you're sitting here thinking, yes, I do want to feel aligned, I do want to feel expansive, I have had these ideas about what I could be doing differently, take this as your sign and your permission slip to go try it. Go try it. What's the worst thing that could happen, right? The world's not going to end. You're not going to lose brownie points with your soul because you're trying something new, like whatever fear your mind has, it's not going to happen. Because again, that's just your mind saying that something new is dangerous. Let that go for now. Just for today, try it. See what happens. Follow your intuition and know that you are worthy and that you have a space of over 4,000 people waiting to hear your story, waiting to hear how it went, waiting to support you and answer your questions when they come up along the way, because that's part of the process. And leaning into that community is, again, part of that flow of bringing these ideas from your crown into your reality and knowing that you are safe and worthy and capable of doing so.
Absolutely. I love that. And the idea of let's all take a deep breath. Like, the world is not going to end. The bad thing that you fear most likely won't happen when you step out of the box. And knowing that, I think that's who we really serve, is that the people that don't want to be in the box anymore. And even though, like, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Reiki history, does not mean that my practice looks anything remotely like the historical Reiki practice at all. And so I think there's space for both. I don't think that there is one right way to do a Reiki training. I think we need to start listening to that authentic voice and being true and being honest with people, sharing, this is the way I teach, and this is why it might be different from what you've experienced in a normal Reiki session, but this is how I do it. And just being really comfortable and confident in how we are practicing, and knowing that there's space for that. There's a reason why people gravitate towards us or some of our graduates. It's like they're not doing it in the mold. And I think that there's so much flexibility there. And there are so many people in the world that need healing, and they need you. They need you to be exactly who you are meant to be. And that, God, divine, universe, whatever you want to call it, is made you this way with these interests for a reason. And if the fear was gone, what would life look like? What would be your next step? And so if you're listening right now, taking a moment, if fear was not in the way, what is the one thing that you could do for yourself today? And notice that. Notice what that is. Honor it and go do it. And notice how your world won't crumble by taking the action steps. That's that universal ping pong, right? Like, okay, we got the inspiration. Now we actually have to do the divine inspired action. And then, and it becomes this beautiful game with the universe that we can play together. And so with that, thank you all so much for listening, for showing up, for noticing where this triggered you, where your stuff is. Know that we're here to support you, that we have programs and offerings and all of the things that really want to support you in your healing so that you can come to this place of acceptance of yourself and knowing that you are worthy and that you can find that inner confidence to create the life and the desires that you want. So thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you all so much for showing up, for doing the work, for spending this time with us. It has been an honor and a joy. I can't wait to hear all of your insights and your aha moments from today. Feel free to share them over in the Reiki Cafe community Facebook group. And until then, we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.